Happy to have him as always. The latest jobs numbers, which the president inappropriately tweeted about before they came out, which you're not supposed to do. Nobody else has done that but Donald Trump. And there's a reason for that, too, and we'll get into that as well. From the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, centeronbudget.org, Chad Stone is with us. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm well, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning. Did you have a good weekend?
It's a good weekend, yeah. How about you?
Just fine, just fine. Well, let's start with the last thing I said.
Yeah.
The president's not supposed to tweet. There's a reason you don't do that. And I'm not even the president,
right.
and I know better than that. So can you explain that to the audience why the jobs numbers come out in the way that they do and that they're embargoed for a reason?
Sure. The bottom line is that it can move markets, but there's a long history, and I've actually been a part of it. When I worked at the Joint Economic Committee, and when I worked in Congress, and when I worked at the Council of Economic Advisors in the Clinton White House, which is that because the data has to come out all at the same time so that everyone knows when it's coming and no one has a leap up on anyone else and can make some trades. You can make money by trading on inside information, and learning something before everyone else in the market is inside information, and we don't want to do that. So at the Joint Economic Committee, we used to have hearings on the jobs report every month. That actually goes back to Nixon, another president whose name has been in the news lately. Because he tried to suppress the Bureau of Labor Statistics from reporting on the jobs report when he got bad news. And so the Joint Economic Committee decided to hold hearings. And there'd be a lockdown where the BLS would give staff a little bit of heads up a half hour before the 8:30 release so that the hearing they could know a little bit about what to ask at the hearing. But people were locked in a room. You couldn't use your phones. There was real precautions. And in the White House, the Council of Economic Advisors would get the information the night before from the Bureau of Labor Statistics so they could write a memo to the president and the vice president, and only the president and the vice president, so that before 8:30, even if there were a White House staff meeting and the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors was there, the chairman could not say anything about the jobs report to any of the other White House officials until 8:30. And it's all about not giving anybody a special advantage to make money on the news.
I see. You also mentioned how it could potentially affect markets also.
Yeah.
Can you help us understand that?
Well, the president didn't actually say any numbers, but his tweet obviously was suggesting that the numbers would be good, because he said looking forward or something like that to the jobs report. Mm-hmm. And so there's trading that takes place before the market opens, and people who happen to see the tweet or and of course, it raises questions about his whole approach to the confidentiality of the data. It's very cavalier. They can put their orders in and know whether to buy or sell things that are sensitive to the jobs report. If the jobs report is strong, that could be good for stocks. So financial markets can actually move ahead of time, or people can have their trades already booked when markets open. So it's yet another sort of going outside the guardrails that have always controlled presidential behavior.
Yeah, interesting. Chad Stone with the Center on Budget. So Chad, we've got the latest jobs report from Friday. And it wasn't bad. In fact, I guess the part of the initial reaction was that it was even better than expected.
Yeah, there's no denying this was a pretty good jobs report. We got back to over 200,000 jobs created, 223,000 jobs, plus another 15,000 in revisions from the previous 2 months. so that we've been at a pretty high pace of job creation this year, 179,000 a month, and that's well above what's required just to keep up with population growth and keep the unemployment rate constant. And in fact, the unemployment rate fell to 3.8%, which we haven't seen since back in 2000. That's we can't deny that a strong labor market is a good thing. Now, last month we had a big jump in the labor force, the number of people working or looking for work, but all of it went into people looking for work. There was very little increase in the number of people who actually said they had a job. This month, we had almost no growth in the labor force, but we had a huge swing from people who were not working to people who were working. So averaging the 2 months, there was some good. It was pretty okay. And over the year, the unemployment rate's down to 3.8. And as the president rightly pointed out, the black unemployment rate at 5.9% is the lowest on record in data that goes back to 1972. So the white unemployment rate is 3.5. The black or African American is 5.9, and that's low. That's good. And the numbers jump around, but over the course of this year, black unemployment, starting in January, 7.7, 6.9, 6.9, 6.6, 5.9. So it has been coming down, and that's great. Full employment, and we have full employment thanks to Federal Reserve and a long recovery that began in June 2009. Full employment is one of the best things for the traditionally disadvantaged workers because employers are much more inclined to hire. I saw somebody remark about signs back in the 1990s, the last time we saw an expansion like that, signs going up saying, "Now hiring, pulse required." In other words, we don't need qualifications. We need a worker. We need someone in the spot, and that can overcome to some degree discrimination. It can overcome all kinds of prejudice against people who've been out of work for a while. So those things are all good, and we should be happy about the strong labor market because it's a lot better than a weak labor market.
In terms of the lowering black unemployment, though, is part of that, I'm just asking, potentially due to folks that have left the labor market altogether?
That's possible. The statistics are fairly limited there, but if we look at the share of the population, the share of the black population with a job, that's been rising fairly steadily. And if we look at labor force participation, the share of the working age, the share of the population 16 and over that is working or looking for work, that's been rising too. So for the most part, all of the indicators have been good. I don't have wage information in front of me. Wages in general have been more sluggish than we would like in such a strong labor market, but they've still been going up some. So I think that it's pretty good news on the black unemployment rate front. It's not people dropping out because people are in fact coming back in.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in terms of what are some of the other factors that caused the uptick in terms of hiring in this past month? What would you attribute that to?
Well, we started to talk about this last month that there is some stimulus in the economy from the tax cuts. It's not a permanent stimulus, but there's just so much, even though most of the tax cuts are going to rich people and companies, it is stimulating some additional economic activity. And second, the federal, it's not the way you'd like to have more money going into ordinary people's pocketbooks because they spend it. rather they spend most of it, whereas you get less bang for the buck from money that goes to big corporations and rich people, but you get some. Secondly, of course, the Federal Reserve has been moving very slowly to raise interest rates, and they've said, we're going to let the unemployment rate go down as long as inflation is within the bounds that we want to see. And in fact, for most of this expansion, inflation was in some sense too low, which meant that there wasn't enough real demand. So the Fed and some stimulus from the tax cuts mean that we're in a pretty robust economy. There's also stronger growth abroad. Now, of course, we can get to the next topic, which is the trade disruptions and so forth, which will create some uncertainty.
But tell us about that. I mean, what kind of uncertainty are we looking forward? I mean, will this kind of jobs report last under those circumstances? That's a hard question, because there's a lot of positive stuff, but you don't want to see the disruption from and the uncertainty about what's going to happen if we're getting into a real trade war with our allies and with China. It's not just addressing China trade. It's picking on our friends as well, and that hurts. Yeah, that hurts industries here. I mean, the steel tariffs. Steel's an input into automobiles, and so automobile manufacturers are going to see higher steel prices as a result of this. It's not a coherent strategy, and it will have unintended consequences, and we don't know how long. What's next? How will our trading partners respond? It's just not an environment that's. Thank goodness the economy is pretty strong right now. Right. Because if it weren't, this would be a real mess. Yeah. Chad Stone folks of the Center on Budget. What about, because we always also, Chad, talk about state, or should I say federal and state government employment. Right. What did that look like this go round?
Well, there was, on balance, we had more there was net job creation in government. It was pretty modest, and it was all due to local government employment increased. Small. The big story for most of the recovery, for the early stages of the recovery from the recession, was that government employment was still going down, and state and local government were really, really down. Now, state and local government and federal government are about back to where they were before the recession. In other words, they've recovered jobs lost for the most part, but that's a pretty weak standard. In most past recoveries, state and local governments have been a big source of employment growth. And in this one, they haven't been, and they were negative for quite a while. Although that's kind of, there's only smallish changes these days, but we're way below the growth you would have seen in normal recoveries in state and local government employment. Yeah. Fortunately, the private sector has in fact generated a lot of employment to make up the difference, but it's taken a long time, and we would have had a faster recovery if state and local government had come back faster.
But I want to be clear. I mean, this is still the recovery that began in the Obama administration.
Yes, this is,
and we're still reaping some of the benefits from that, which is expected. I mean, there's some carryover from administration to administration. I know President Trump would like to think this is all him and all it began with me, but we know that it's a carryover.
That's right. That's right. This is now going to be this is now the second longest economic expansion. We're at the stage where we're at. In technical business cycle language, this is the expansion phase of the business cycle, which has been going on since June 2009. So that's, something like 7.5 years of Obama and a year and a half of Trump. I've said it before, I'll say it again, he's acting like he was, this recovery was, the Trump part of the recovery was like the person born on third base thinking they'd hit a triple. And
kind of like his real life situation, isn't it, huh, Chad? I think Chad just said something though. But as we said, Chad is nonpartisan and sent on budget. Now, Chad didn't say that. I said it, y'all. If anybody asked, that was me. Third base. Chad Stone, folks. Chad CBBP. CBPP. I'm sorry. Chad CBPP. And if you get it, just think about Trump too. PP. Chad CBPP. Sorry, I did that, Chad. I'm gonna get Chad in trouble.
You're on a roll.
On Twitter, Chad CBPP with the latest jobs report. SitOnBudget.org as well for the Off the Charts blog. Keep in touch. Keep up with everything they're doing. Chad, as always, buddy. Thank you, man. Okay.
Yeah, always great to talk to you, Mark.
Yeah, man. Okay, enjoy the rest of the week. Give everyone my regards too. Okay.
Will do.
All right. Take care now.